February 15th, 2009. Marion County, Florida. Darkness settles over a quiet stretch of highway as the last customers trickle out of a roadside gas station. Inside, Heather Strong clocks out of her shift. Just another ordinary night for a 26-year-old mother working hard to make ends meet. But within hours, Heather will disappear, leaving behind 2 children, a circle of friends, and a string of unanswered questions. 10 days crawl by. The whispers start. Maybe Heather just left. Maybe she went back to Mississippi. To some, it makes sense. After all, life hasn't been easy. But something about her vanishing feels off. Heather's purse is missing. Her phone is silent. Her family insists she would never abandon her kids. Then, an unexpected lead. Security footage from a nearby ATM catches a familiar figure. A man, late 20s, using Heather's bank card. Not a stranger, but someone known to everyone in Heather's world. The rumors of a runaway begin to unravel. What was he doing with her card? And where is Heather? The case soon reveals itself to be more than just a missing person report. Tensions rise as police probe deeper, unearthing a tangled love triangle and a history of violence that casts suspicion in every direction. In the shadowy woods behind a weathered trailer, investigators will find a hurried grave, a silent testament to betrayal, jealousy, and desperation. What could drive 2 people once so close to Heather to turn on her in the dead of night? What really happened after she left that gas station? And who wanted to make sure she'd never come back? Sometimes the most dangerous threats come from those we trust the most. To understand the night Heather Strong vanished, we have to step back. Years before the headlines, before the secrets, before that final shift at the gas station. Heather Strong was the kind of woman people described as gentle, soft-spoken, always ready with a quiet smile. Born in 1982, she spent her early adulthood juggling 2 jobs to support her children. At just 16, she'd fallen for Joshua Fulgham, a boy with a wild side and promises of forever. Like so many young loves, theirs burned bright and then burned out. Heather and Josh had a child together, then another. Their relationship was a cycle. Break up, make up, move in, move out. There were moments of hope, but those were too often drowned out by Josh's violent temper and his growing addiction. In 2003, Heather and Josh moved to Florida, chasing a fresh start near Josh's grandmother. But old habits die hard. Their problems followed them. Shouting matches, late-night arguments, and increasingly, threats that left Heather scared for her safety. When Josh began seeing another woman, Amelia Carr, their fragile peace shattered for good. Amelia wasn't just a new girlfriend. She was Heather's former friend, someone who'd once been in her confidence. The lines grew blurred as Josh bounced between the 2 women, fueling jealousies and suspicion. Eventually, Heather tried to break free. She found solace in Ben, a single father like herself, a man who brought calm after so many storms. For a time, she seemed to find balance, building a new routine for her children. But Josh never really let go. The calls, the visits, the threats, they continued. Heather was trapped in a web spun by those she'd once trusted, unable to fully escape. All she wanted was peace, a safe place for her children. But in Marion County, peace would prove elusive. How do you start over when the past keeps chasing you? And what happens when jealousy and old wounds refuse to heal? On the surface, it looked like just another messy breakup, a love triangle gone sour. But beneath that, the story of Heather, Josh, and Amelia was turning darker by the month. Signs of danger flickered like warning lights, but somehow, each one was ignored, dismissed, or brushed aside. By late 2008, the triangle had become a pressure cooker. Amelia, once a friend to Heather, now saw her as a rival. Josh, restless and unpredictable, moved between the two women, sowing jealousy and chaos. The relationships tangled in ways few could understand. There were rumors of three-way living arrangements, breakups and reconciliations so rapid that even close friends couldn't keep track. Both women, in their own way, were desperate to be the only one in Josh's life. November 2008 brought a sharp turn. Amelia discovered she was pregnant with Josh's child. The news set off a cascade of events. Josh proposed to Amelia then, almost on a whim, snatched back the engagement ring and gave it to Heather instead. He married Heather in a rushed ceremony, only to explode in violence less than 2 weeks later, pointing a shotgun at her in a terrifying outburst. The police were called, and Josh was arrested for assault with a weapon. But the cycle didn't end. While Josh sat in jail, Amelia reached out to Heather, trying to convince her to drop the charges. She became increasingly menacing, at one point holding a knife to Heather's throat, and later openly offering $500 to anyone who would take care of her rival. It was a series of red flags, escalating threats, the kind that rarely end well. Yet, in the small-town swirl of gossip and denial, these warnings faded into background noise. How many cries for help go unanswered before tragedy strikes? Why did nobody intervene? Looking back, the signals were unmistakable. A tragedy waiting to happen, just beneath the surface. The morning of February 15th, 2009, began like any other for Heather Strong. She called her boyfriend at the time, Jamie, letting him know that Josh would be coming to pick up their child. By evening, Heather should have been home, tucking in her kids, preparing for another day. But this night would end differently. As darkness crept across Marion County, Heather didn't return. Her belongings, things she never left behind, were gone. Her phone was silent. Hours stretched into worry. Worry stretched into panic. Josh claimed Heather had come back to him, a story that rang hollow for those who knew her. Heather's friends and family sensed something was wrong, but the answers remained out of reach. Behind closed doors, a sinister plan was already in motion. According to confessions later given to investigators, Heather was lured to Amelia Carr's trailer that evening under the pretense of picking up some money. What she didn't know was that Josh and Amelia were waiting. As soon as Heather arrived, the trap was sprung. She was struck in the head, bound at the wrists and ankles, and duct tape was forced over her mouth. Unable to scream, unable to escape, Heather was coerced into signing documents, papers that would hand over custody of her children to Josh. But the nightmare didn't end there. Amelia, convinced that Heather couldn't be allowed to walk free, pressured Josh to finish what they'd started. First, they tried to strangle her. When that failed, they placed a plastic bag over Heather's head and wrapped it tight with tape. Amelia held her breathless until her body finally went limp. As if trying to erase their crime, Josh and Amelia stuffed Heather's body into a suitcase and buried her hurriedly behind the trailer, beneath the Florida dirt. Outwardly, the world kept turning. But somewhere in Marion County, Heather Strong was already lost. Her voice silenced, her story waiting to be uncovered. What drives two people to cross that final, unthinkable line? And could anything have been done to save Heather before it was too late? For 10 days after Heather Strong's disappearance, Marion County was silent. No frantic search parties, no breaking news. Instead, whispers swirled about Heather, running away to Mississippi, a rumor fueled by Josh, who even produced a signed custody document to show she'd left the kids behind willingly. But Heather's family knew better. She was devoted to her children. Disappearing without a word was unthinkable. On March 18, 2009, a new piece of evidence surfaced. Transactions were made on Heather's bank account, and surveillance footage revealed the person at the ATM, Josh Fulgham, calmly withdrawing cash with Heather's card. This was the break investigators needed. The narrative of a mother running away began to collapse. Detectives brought Josh and Amelia in for questioning, separately. Under pressure, their stories cracked. Amelia, seeking a deal, was the first to break, offering to confess everything in exchange for leniency. Josh, shaken and cornered, eventually did the same. It became clear. This wasn't a spontaneous act, but a carefully orchestrated plan. One final twist. Law enforcement turned to an unlikely ally, Josh's own sister, Michelle. Equipping her with a hidden recorder, investigators sent Michelle to speak with Amelia. It worked. In chilling detail, Amelia recounted the night of the murder, her account echoing Josh's confession almost word for word. The web of lies was finally untangling. The combination of ATM footage, forensics, and recorded confessions painted a damning picture. Any lingering doubts were erased. The so-called missing person case was, in fact, a cold-blooded murder, meticulously planned, ruthlessly executed. If not for a single camera and a sister's courage, would the truth ever have come to light? Sometimes, it's the smallest details that crack a case wide open. Every investigation has a turning point, a moment when scattered clues snap into focus, forcing the story to change course. For the murder of Heather Strong, there were 3 such moments. Each one brought investigators closer to the truth, stripping away the lies and rumors that had clouded the case from the start. The first breakthrough came with the ATM surveillance footage. The grainy video, time-stamped days after Heather's disappearance, showed Josh Fulgham withdrawing cash with her bank card. It was undeniable. Josh was connected to Heather's vanishing, and his story about her leaving voluntarily was suddenly full of holes. If Heather had run away, why would Josh have her card? The second turning point arrived when Josh finally broke during interrogation, leading police to the place he and Amelia had tried so hard to hide, a shallow grave behind Amelia Carr's trailer. It was there, beneath the Florida soil, that authorities found Heather's remains, her body crammed into a suitcase, duct tape still clinging to her skin. The physical evidence at the scene matched the confessions investigators had collected. The truth was brutal, but now it was irrefutable. But perhaps the most decisive piece of evidence was yet to come. Acting on a hunch, police enlisted Josh's sister, Michelle, to wear a wire and speak with Amelia. What she recorded was chilling. Amelia recounted every detail of the crime, her version aligning perfectly with Josh's earlier confession. The tape was clear, direct, and damning. It left the jury with little doubt about Amelia's role as a willing, active participant. Step by step, the puzzle fit together. The ATM video, the grave behind the trailer, the recorded confession, each one dismantled the web of denial, locking both Josh and Amelia into a story they could no longer escape. At what point does denial become impossible? And how many chances do the guilty get before their secrets finally betray them? The evidence against Josh Fulgham and Amelia Carr was overwhelming. As the case moved from investigation to courtroom, the community waited, holding its breath, searching for justice in a tragedy that had left so many lives shattered. Amelia Carr was the first to stand trial in 2010, facing a jury for first-degree murder. The prosecution laid out the facts: the jealous rivalry, the threats, the plan to lure Heather into a trap, and the final, deadly act. The ATM footage, the forged custody documents, the grave behind the trailer. The jury listened as Michelle's recording echoed through the courtroom, Amelia's own voice describing the crime in chilling detail. 7 jurors voted for the death penalty, 5 against, a split that still tipped toward the most severe punishment. On February 22, 2011, the judge sentenced Amelia Carr to death by lethal injection. Josh Fulgham's trial came next. He faced the same charge, first-degree murder, but his jury leaned toward life in prison rather than execution. In 2012, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Both sentences brought a measure of closure for Heather's grieving family, but the scars left behind would not heal so easily. Yet the story didn't end there. Amelia's legal team appealed her sentence, pointing out that the jury's recommendation for death had not been unanimous. After years of court battles, in 2017 her sentence was reduced to life without parole. A final twist in a case already marked by betrayal, violence, and heartbreak. In the end, both Josh and Amelia would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. The courtroom drama was over, but the echoes of Heather Strong's murder would haunt Marion County for years to come. When justice is served, does it ever truly heal those left behind? Or do some wounds linger long after the verdict is read? When the trials were over and the cameras faded, Marion County was left to pick up the pieces. For Heather Strong's family, there would never be true closure. A young mother, just 26 years old, was gone, her life stolen in a storm of jealousy and rage. 2 children lost their mother that night, and with Josh sentenced to life in prison, they effectively lost their father as well. The ripple effect stretched beyond one family. Amelia Carr's children, including the baby she was carrying during the murder, were placed into foster care, caught in a web of loss and uncertainty that none of them asked for. Heather's story is a stark reminder. Cycles of violence and obsession rarely end quietly. The warning signs were all there. Threats with weapons, talk of hiring someone to do harm, repeated patterns of control and intimidation. Each was a flashing signal that went unheeded, each a missed chance for intervention. This case leaves us with hard questions. How many lives might have been saved if someone had acted sooner? If Heather had received the protection she needed, would she still be alive? And what happens to the children who grow up in the shadow of such tragedy? Children forced to navigate a world forever marked by loss. In the end, Heather Strong became a statistic, a victim of domestic violence, silenced by those she once trusted. But she was also a mother, a daughter, a friend, someone whose absence will always be felt by those who loved her. Her story urges us to look closer, to listen when someone asks for help, to never dismiss the red flags as just drama or empty threats. Because in the aftermath of violence, it's the innocent who suffer most. And every missed warning is a chance lost, a lesson written in heartbreak and memory. Heather Strong's story is a haunting reminder of how quickly love can curdle into obsession, and how warning signs, no matter how obvious, can be ignored until it's too late. Behind closed doors, cycles of jealousy and violence spiral out of control, leaving families shattered and futures erased. For Heather, the red flags were there: threats, intimidation, and betrayal by those closest to her. In the end, it took a relentless investigation and the courage of a few to bring her killers to justice. Yet for her children and all those left behind, the scars remain. This case is a call to never turn away from someone in danger, and to remember that real lives are at stake when violence goes unchecked. If you found Heather's story moving, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. Every view helps bring awareness to the hidden dangers of domestic violence. If you or someone you know is in need of help, don't hesitate. Reach out to your local resources or hotlines. Let's work together to make sure no warning sign goes unheard and no victim's voice is ever silenced.